Yeah.
What's up? What's up, y'all? Welcome back, Thailand TV. Another episode. Today we're gonna do a little more sports talk. We're gonna delve into a nice little topic that pretty touchy topic. You know what I'm saying? If I do say so myself, because I've seen a lot of posts about this, a lot of different opinions about this. I've also seen some of the opinions very aggressive. You know what I'm saying? Like, people have been very aggressive with their opinion on this one. We're dealing with here the GOAT, right? Everybody knows what the GOAT is, greatest of all times, right? And you can use that with anything: music, sports. Yeah, I mean anything and anything that has a history of a lot of people that have done great accomplishments in that field, right? And we want to know who's the GOAT, right? We always want to know who the greatest of all time. I think every generation thinks that their player that's great in their era is the GOAT. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to help kind of put it to rest, hopefully, as to who the GOAT is, right? As of today, as of December 19th, 2024, right? So, I mean, we go into the topic of the greatest of all times. And I think that one of the things a lot of people got to understand is when you speak about the GOAT, you have to understand the categories, right? Are people checking off categories, right? For me, I think checking off categories is pretty big when it comes to me analyzing who I feel like is the best, the greatest to ever do it, right? And I mean, I was on a podcast, Big Sam and Nephew's podcast, and this is one of the discussions that we had one time, was talking about who the GOAT was, right? And I think one of the biggest opinions that one of the guys on the panel brought up was Wilt Chamberlain. I think Wilt Chamberlain was an amazing basketball player. Not only was he an amazing basketball player, but he was a track star. The guy was 7 foot. 7'3" I think, and could run faster than most players, could jump out of the gym. I think he is the only player in the history of the sport of basketball to have a quintuple double. And that's what I think he had: doubles, points, doubles, rebounds, doubles and assists, doubles in blocks, and doubles in steals in one game, right? Also, he's the only player to have 100 points, right? I think a lot of people label Kobe Bryant as the greatest of all time. He had an 81-point game. So like that. Now we're talking about categories, right? We're talking about categories: who scored the most points, right? Who can score the most points? And I think that we need to label people what they are, right? I feel like Kobe Bryant is the greatest scorer, hands down. Hands down. I think Kobe Bryant is the greatest guy to ever put the ball in the basketball hole, right? You can't stop the guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can only hope to, what they say, you can't stop him, you can only hope to contain him, right? I think he created one of the best moves in the history of basketball, the fadeaway, one of the most unguardable shots. To me, I factor in influence and the move that person creates. Sometimes I factor that in when I'm thinking about the greatest players. I think Allen Iverson is one of the greatest players in the history of the game, just because he created the crossover, or not created the crossover, he magnified the crossover. Tim Hardaway was actually the one who actually brought the crossover to light. Pistol Pete Maravich was a crossover guy, but I think Tim Hardaway, UTEP two-step, brought that up, and then Allen Iverson just took it to another level, commercialized it, and just made it look beautiful, finessed it, right? And made it unguardable, right? I think Wilt Chamberlain, like I said, was one guy where everything that he did was just really unguardable. I mean, he was above the rim with everything that he did. Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the sky hook, one of the most unguardable shots in the history of the game, right? Plus points, right? He had the most points in the history of the game until LeBron just recently passed him. So, and then we get on to LeBron James. LeBron James, to me, one of the most unguardable people You know what I'm saying? Like coming down the court at a fast break, he is probably to me the most unguardable coming down the court on a fast break. That's a freight train. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be the guy taking that charge. You know what I'm saying? Like out of anybody in the history of the league, you know what I'm saying? Karl Malone was similar to that. You did not want to take a charge from that guy because Shaq, you was going to get hurt. You was going to feel that, right? So LeBron James, to me, is pretty close to the most perfect specimen of an NBA body that you could ever make. I mean, you can't even make that body on NBA 2K. Like you don't have enough bitcoins. You don't have enough of anything to make that body that LeBron has, that build that LeBron has. Right? You can't make it. Right? And I feel that makes him dominant. I feel that he's a great passer. He's a great rebounder. He's tops in all the majority, all the categories that are of importance on the floor. He's pretty much tops of all of them. So you got to have him in the GOAT conversation. You got to. I mean, if you don't, you're a fool. You don't know basketball at all, right? I think a lot of times people talk about his softness, but I don't feel like that's just a LeBron James issue. I feel like that's an NBA issue. I think that you got to understand. I was having a conversation with my guys the other day. We were watching the girls' game at the high school, and they were talking about on the court, whatever, and I had to break it down to them. Like, if you look on the basketball court right now, there's 13 players on the basketball court, right? And they were like, "What do you mean, coach? 13 players?" I'm like, 10 players, 5 from each team, but then there's 3 referees, right? See, and you got to factor that into the game. So I don't hold LeBron fault for all the softness because the NBA became a soft game. Shoot, the NFL becoming soft with all the rule changes, right? But anyways, we'll talk about NFL another day. We'll talk about basketball right now. So LeBron James definitely is in the GOAT conversation. You can't deny it. I don't care who you are, you can't deny it. But the number one player in the history of the game of basketball, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all times. And the reason why I say he is the greatest player of all times is because when it mattered, he won the game. It didn't matter. You could talk about him not being a good three-point shooter. It doesn't matter. I don't care. You could talk about him not winning titles without Scottie. Scottie helped him win the titles. I don't care. The greatest player of all time is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. The guy could just go out there and just say, hey, you know what? I'm about to win this game. And not only that, his rigor, the way that he was just able to ignite his team. Like, there's a story about, I'm sure you guys seen the documentary, and how his teammates talked about his passion and just how he just was just so aggressive with how he wanted things to run and so dominant in the practices and treating people like, they ain't nothing if they're not bringing their A game every time. Even to the point where you heard a story about him punching Steve Kerr, one of his teammates, in the face. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you better make these shots. And sure enough, Steve Kerr, next games, every time Michael Jordan passed him the ball, he made them shots, right? But that's the thing about it. His passion of the game, his passion for winning was so burnt so hard in his soul and in his heart that you could not deny him. And that's what made him, to me, the most greatest player of all time. I mean, you can go through and you could talk about scoring all day long. Jerry West was a great scorer. I was telling my kids the other day about Larry Bird, because we were having practice, and the JV team was practicing against the varsity team, and the JV team was like, "But coach, they know the plays." I'm like, let me tell y'all something. Back when Larry Bird was playing, players would tell you that Larry Bird would tell you. He'd say, "Look, I'm about to grab the ball at the elbow. I'm about to catch the pass at the elbow. I'm gonna dribble 2 times, and I'm gonna hit this off the glass." He catch the ball at the elbow, dribble 2 times, and hit it off the glass. One player even said one time, Larry told him, "Hey man, I'm gonna score all left-handed. I'm gonna score all left-handed this game." He was like, "Man, no, you ain't." Went out there and scored left-handed. I got receipts, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, check the stuff that I'm talking about. Like, straight up, Larry did that. But does that make him a GOAT, right? I mean, that puts him in the conversation. Him and Magic, like neck and neck. You know what I'm saying? You can have Magic at 6, you'd have to have Larry at 7. If you have Larry at 6, you have to have Magic at 7, right? Those two together, right? I mean, they even changed the NBA because the NBA was sucking until Magic until Magic and Bird came into the league. So you can kind of put them up there just because of their significance to the game. And another thing, I think one of the biggest things that Michael Jeffrey Jordan did was he revolutionized the wear. He revolutionized the gear. He revolutionized Nike. He revolutionized the shoe game. And one of the things, and I think his mother had a big deal with this one, was he revolutionized the marketability of players. He was the first one, they say, he was the first one with a shoe deal. You know what I'm saying? He was the first one to break barriers. I mean, he had the black shoes that he wore. They said they didn't want players wearing black shoes, and he wore them anyway, right? He was just one of those type of guys where if he wanted to do it, he was going to go out there and do it, and he didn't care what anybody said. And then not only that, when it came time to win, he won. And that's the one guy you did not want. If your team was up by 1 point with 24 seconds on the clock and Michael Jeffrey Jordan was on the court, you was going to lose. You was gonna lose. Like, that's just, you know what I mean? Especially for the championship. Maybe during the regular season you might have a chance, but for the championship, yeah, you was gonna lose. And of course, he had earlier years where he was booted out. I mean, people have those years, you know what I'm saying? People have those times. But then once he finally got a team around him and everybody was in the places that made sure everybody was in the places that they need to be in, and he made sure everybody's skill set was utilized for what that skill set was. That was his mentality, and that's what makes him one of the greatest players of all time. Or I'm sorry, that's what makes him the greatest player of all time. Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Thank you.
Make it slack. Yeah, put your life on the line for this. You don't deserve it. Yeah. Smile at one.